Bucknutters, welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, April 17th, 2017. I am Dave Biddle, and I am very happy to be joined by the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Bill, Ohio State, of course, picked up a couple of commitments over the weekend. Offensive tackle Max Wray from Franklin, Tennessee, and safety Josh Proctor from Owasso, Oklahoma. Wray is ranked as the number 4 offensive tackle in the country and the number 57 overall recruit in the 2018 class, while Proctor is ranked as the number 7 safety and the number 87 overall prospect in the country. The Buckeyes are now 5th in the 24/7 Sports Composite team recruiting rankings. Bill, let's start with Wray. What are your thoughts on his commitment, and did you kind of see this one coming?
Well, absolutely huge for Ohio State. You know, you're talking about one of the top offensive tackles in the country, number 4 in the country. You're talking about position of need. Ohio State, you know, they've been very open with recruits, offensive linemen, telling them we need tackles in this class. And when you get the number 4 guy, and potentially you could have the number 1 guy in Jackson Carman as well, who had a great visit to Ohio State this past weekend. Getting to the number 4 and potentially number 1 offensive tackle in the country, that's huge for Ohio State. And, you know, as far as seeing it coming, Dave, certainly in a way I did, because after he visited Ohio State the weekend before the spring game with his younger brother, who is a great tackle as well, just a freshman, and his father told me that of all the schools that they were still considering, Ohio State probably had the best combination of things to offer of any of the schools, and that he would be deciding in the not-too-distant future. So as far as Ohio State landing him, you know, I felt very good about Ohio State eventually landing him. In fact, I had crystal balled him to Ohio State the day before the spring game. I just didn't think it would necessarily be that soon as Saturday morning, but indeed that started the day off in great fashion for Mark Pantoni, Urban Meyer, and the Ohio State staff.
Yeah, right there in Franklin, Tennessee. What a great get for the Buckeyes, as you said. And I think he must be neighbors with Kirk Herbstreit and Kenny Chesney and all those guys in Franklin, Tennessee. And our guy Bill King, who lives down there as well. So great get for the Buckeyes. Also a great get getting Proctor, especially out of Oklahoma. What are your thoughts on getting Josh Proctor? And, again, did you kind of see that one coming?
Now, that one certainly was a surprise to virtually everyone. You know, you look at the crystal ball, and it had 100% Oklahoma, and I think most people had him pegged to Oklahoma. But I look back to when I talked to him in the summertime, and he had told me that Ohio State, after his visit, was a place he really, really liked. You know, again, I thought, well, you know, the visit could wear off, and ultimately he would likely go to Oklahoma, but he makes it back to Ohio Stadium, has a great time, and commits. And again, that's absolutely huge, because safety in this class, they did so well with the 2017 class in getting corners. Now they're loading up. They've got 2 of the country's top safeties in Josh Proctor and Jaden Woodby. And again, you're going to be hard-pressed to find anybody playing 2 better safeties in the same recruiting class anywhere in the country for 2018.
All right, let's talk about some big-time uncommitted prospects. Of course, Brenton Cox, you're all over this story. You did a piece for the site last night. Like I said, you've just been all over this. Brenton Cox is the number 3 strong side defensive end in the country. He's from Stockbridge, Georgia. Dean, what is the latest on Brenton Cox? What do we need to know?
Well, that was huge news on Sunday evening. I got a hold of Brenton actually right when he arrived home. He told me he had just gotten home from Ohio State. He was here for the weekend. I saw him at the spring game, and my goodness, he certainly passes the look test with flying colors. Talking to our good buddy Rusty Manziel from the Georgia site, who is obviously an insider for Georgia, does a great job. He's seen Brenton play in person, says he is the real deal, and I've seen him on film, and very impressive. He is without a doubt deserving of his high ranking as one of the top 3 strong side defensive ends in the country. And he got home for that visit, told me that he was ready to make his decision, that he had just a super time at Ohio State. He mentioned how his mom loved it, and that he would be announcing his college choice sometime this coming week. And it's down to Ohio State and Georgia, so that's absolutely huge news for Ohio State and Georgia fans. You know, which way he goes, we'll see. You know, certainly talking to him right after his visit, you know, my vibe was that Ohio State was in a good position. But again, he's not announcing. The plan is sometime this week, and he's going to have time to think about things. We'll see if the visit wears off at all. But Ohio State is one of the two finalists for Brenton Cox, and that's big for Ohio State. He again is a great prospect.
The timing is certainly interesting, to put it mildly. I mean, it just seems to be such a good sign for Ohio State, and anything can happen in recruiting. He could even pick Ohio State and then flip to Georgia later in the process, as we all know. It's all fluid, but am I reading too much into this? It just seems like it's good for Ohio State that he visits for the spring game, and all of a sudden he announced it's down to these two schools, and he's going to announce it this week. It just seems like the timing-wise, I mean, you've been down this road many times. Timing-wise, this looks pretty good for the Buckeyes, correct?
It does. But the interesting thing is that as soon as he was done with the visit, he had mentioned to me that he wasn't going to take any other visits. And that, again, timing-wise, would be a positive for Ohio State. But then later on Sunday night, he talked to Rusty Manziel and told Rusty that he was planning to go ahead then and visit Georgia this coming weekend. So we'll see. Does he end up taking that visit? Well, right now he says he is going to do that. He's told Rusty that. So, we'll see what happens. Again, it's a fluid process, and as I said on the front row message board last night, this is recruiting.
Exactly. You can just leave it at that, and everybody knows what that means if they followed recruiting, even for just a year. Everybody knows recruiting is about as crazy as it gets. Another big-time recruit that is uncommitted that all fans want to know about, Jackson Carman, of course, the number one offensive tackle in the country. It's like you've been writing a lot of stories or something lately, Bill. You did an update on Jackson Carman for the site yesterday. What is the absolute latest on Jackson Carman?
Well, a little flip, just a little flip there, and certainly it's good news for Ohio State fans in that last week I had written a story that Jackson Carman had told me that rather than saying Clemson was number one and Ohio State was number two, he told me that it would be more like 1A and 1B, that Clemson would be 1A and Ohio State would be 1B. After he finished his Ohio State visit this past weekend of the spring game, he arrived on Friday, hung out with the players and some recruits on Friday night, went to the spring game, was absolutely given the royal treatment by the Ohio State staff, was taken out onto the field, and I'm sure you saw this day before the game, with Urban Meyer, I believe, at that point, he was the only recruit taken out there right at that time. So they rolled out the red carpet for him, and afterwards he told me that, it's still 1A and 1B, but he said that it's more Ohio State as 1A and Clemson as 1B, after that great visit. So that's certainly a positive. But again, this is recruiting. Jackson's going to go through the process. I've tried to tell people that he's not going to all of a sudden announce a decision. He's going to take his official visits. He's going to go through the process, and his plan is to announce in December. Another positive, though, for Jackson is that just like Brenton Cox, who made the trip to Ohio State with his mother, Jackson Carman made the trip this past weekend to Ohio State with his mother, and that's a positive.
If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. I know that's a double negative, but that's how the phrase goes, and I like that phrase. One more recruiting topic, then we'll get to the spring game itself. What's the latest on running back Tavion Thomas from Dayton Dunbar? Is this all going to come down to academics, whether or not he can pass the clearinghouse?
Well, I think that's very important, obviously. And I've mentioned that he needs to take care of everything, just like every recruit. They all need to take care of everything for the NCAA clearinghouse. Tavion did not make it to the Ohio State spring game this past weekend. Ohio State certainly is still a school that he's been looking at and he's interested in, and we'll see. But at this point, like I mentioned before, like all recruits, he has to take care of things for the NCAA clearinghouse, and he's working hard to do that. So we'll have to see how that all plays out.
All right, now the spring game itself, the Scarlet came away with a 38-31 win over the Gray. Before we get into specifics, what was your biggest takeaway from the game, Bill?
I would think just watching the battle between Joe Burrow and Dwayne Haskins for the number 2 quarterback spot. I will have to say I was more impressed with Haskins than I thought I would be, to be honest. He slung it really well, and Joe Burrow did as well. I still go with what I've said all along. I think Joe Burrow is going to be an outstanding quarterback for the Buckeyes. I have long liked him and still do, but there's no doubt Haskins played well. My question mark has been all along with Haskins is, how will he love to sling it? How will he be able to run Urban Meyer's offense and the power spread offense, and how will he be able to do that? Joe Burrow, while he doesn't have blazing speed, he's certainly not Braxton Miller. He's a very effective runner. And Dwayne Haskins, that's my question mark for him. But I think even Urban alluded to it. Urban has it as a close battle right now for the backup spot, and that's, I guess, the thing that stood out to me the most.
Yeah, I guess that's definitely the main thing everybody's talking about. I know a lot of people are like, should one of those guys be the starter? Well, whatever fans think about that, it's just a moot point because Urban Meyer's not even entertaining the notion of anyone except for J.T. Barrett being the starter. So if anybody out there is wondering, is there a quarterback competition for the starting job? No, there's not. It's J.T. Barrett's job, and as Bill said, it really comes down to who's going to be the backup. And I agree with you, Bill. I think it's a really close call. Haskins looks great to me. It's almost amazing that, not almost amazing, it is amazing that he's going to be the third-string quarterback of this team. I mean, it's just, you don't see third-string quarterbacks that are that good. Although maybe 4 years ago he did someone named Cardale Jones. But just this embarrassment of riches at quarterback at Ohio State, it's unbelievable. I think it's going to be Burrow as the backup. I think he'll be the heir apparent to J.T. Barrett one day. Hey, who was a young player, maybe two young players that you think really flashed during the spring game?
Oh, and yeah, real quick, getting back to that, you mentioned Cardale Jones. He was a bit of a rock star in the stadium on Saturday. When he entered down on the field where the recruits were and all, Cardale was signing his share of autographs, and it was like a rock star re-entering the stadium, so that was kind of cool. You could tell Cardale, who I've known for a long time, was enjoying that, and rightly so, I might add. But
that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad he gets to come back. So I've seen him come back a lot. I was up in the press box. I didn't see that up close like you did. But Cardale's been around spring ball throughout these last couple of months. He's going to get his degree pretty soon. Tom Herman's going to come to the ceremony when Cardale gets his degree. It's just such a great story. Everything. I mean, he's 11-0 as Ohio State starting quarterback. The only one that's going to be able to say he's undefeated as an Ohio State starting quarterback. The magical national championship run. It all starts with his career at Ohio State with the infamous tweet, "I didn't come here to play school," and it's going to end with him getting his degree. So he came back to play school. It's just, and as you're saying, now he's signing autographs like a big rock star in front of these recruits who look up to him as like this, this legend at Ohio State. And he always will be a legend at Ohio State due to what happened during that 2014 season. It's such a cool story, and I wish him well with the Bills. But, let's get back to the spring game. Justin Hilliard, anybody else you want to mention that you think, a young player or two, do you think really flashed during the game?
Well, he didn't. He's not certainly not a young player, but I had to be impressed with Johnny Dixon, and good for him. He's battled injuries and all that, and to come out and have the game he did, that to me was very impressive. Again, he's not a young guy, but I think I got to mention Johnny Dixon just because he's been through a lot as far as the injuries and all that, and he came into Ohio State as a very highly ranked and highly touted player coming into the program, and it's been just like Justin Hilliard, it's been a case of injuries that have really hampered his and their careers, and I just feel good for Johnny Dixon that he was able to do that on Saturday.
Yeah, it was a fun game, and I thought Demario McCall looked really good out there. Paris Campbell's another guy like Johnny Dixon, not a young guy, fourth-year junior, but Paris Campbell looks really good to me. I think now fans are starting to see why the coaches are so high on him. Such a small sample size. When people say Paris Campbell has bad hands, they're talking about seeing him, as a redshirt freshman against Virginia Tech dropping a touchdown. And he had a couple drops last year, including in the Michigan game. It's a very small, you're talking about maybe like 4 or 5 plays during his career so far. So I think when he gets a lot of opportunities now as a fourth-year junior, I think Paris Campbell's going to have a big year in that Curtis Samuel role.
And Dave, you mentioned Demario McCall, and I would 100% agree with you on Demario. If you want to go with a young player, he really stood out, and not at all surprising. I'm a Demario McCall fan. I saw him in high school and saw him at Ohio State at the camps and things. And the kid is a tremendous athlete who catches everything. I watched him at Ohio State. Ohio State's camp one day, and if the ball was anywhere within reach, he was going to catch it. And he is, to me, a young star in the making, just like you mentioned, Dave.
Thanks to the wisdom of the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. I appreciate it, my friend. And thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. Hope you all have a great day. Let's hear some Buckeye swag. Best damn band in the land.